Everybody, welcome to the Gentle Art Podcast with Gene Dunn. We're continuing our Dojo series with Kiyoshi Thomas Clifford. Welcome, sir. Nice to see you. And my super abundant kitty is jumping up on the table to kind of welcome you as well. So we were discussing before the show, before the podcast, that some topics, and I think you and I sort of landed on one of the most important topics right now is, what if there's another shutdown for a martial arts school, and from the perspective of the operator / sensei and or the students, like what would you do if your dojo as a student were to kind of close, and what would you do as the sensei, the head sensei of the dojo, if we go into another shutdown? So that seems to be the hot topic for us both, and so I'm going to let you go right there. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a big topic, but my first thought is I don't shut down my martial arts. I don't shut down my martial arts ever. I just don't. It might appear that I'm not focused on the growth and the development of my skills in any given moment, perhaps, but I never put down or shut down my martial arts. It's a tremendous part of my identity, if not the foundation. So the idea that so-and-so said that we have to shut down, I don't take that to mean that I have to turn off my martial arts, and I won't. That I will not do. That's not on the table.
Let's make a distinction, because I struggle with this too, and for me, I'm not interested in quotations breaking the law. That's not what we're discussing here, right? We're talking about the kind of intellectual or metaphysical approach to this problem.
Yes.
And how, if we're not mindful, we let it get us into places that are ineffective, if you will. So no one's talking about bucking, the governor's orders to shelter in place, if you will, right? Use that common terminology.
Yeah, that doesn't shut down my martial arts.
Yeah, good.
That doesn't.
What does that do for your martial arts, Tom?
It reminds me and it compels me to delve deeper into it, and to not only continue to practice it, but to apply it. To apply it. Now, if I oversimplify and minimize the application of the martial arts, and I make it a matter of dealing with a mugger. They still say mugger is mugger.
I haven't heard anyone use mugger in some time, since I think that the last time I heard it was the New York Post in 1978.
And that's probably the last time I thought about it. So that's probably the reason why I still use that nomenclature, because I haven't contemplated that as a primary application of the principles of the martial arts since probably about 1978. So it's important, and I appreciate that you want to remind whoever's listening that sometimes you have to listen twice, maybe 3 times, because a lot of what we say could easily be misinterpreted as we're trying to not only violate the law, of which I'm not sure if there are any, but I do know there's correct principles. And if you're not careful, you'll think that we're trying to violate what we believe to be correct principles, thereby making us hypocrites.
Right.
And I don't believe that you or I are doing that. I don't think a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people are accused of doing that, but I don't think a lot of people are doing that. And if you violate correct principles, you usually find out quickly that you're not in harmony with the truth, with what correct universal truths. So again, I wouldn't even begin to entertain the idea of shutting down my martial arts practice. Wouldn't think of doing that. I don't consider doing that. If I consider doing it hypothetically, I realize immediately what a ludicrous proposition that is. I just won't do it. I'm not shutting down my martial arts. So let me present this idea to you for a moment, and maybe people appreciate. Time out, time out, time out. Time out often means while you're deluding yourself into believing that somehow you've stopped time, like that there's time out. Yeah, like somebody
I
else.
haven't thought about that since 1978 either.
Time out, time out. Yep. So, yeah. Well, while time out is happening, while the delusion of time out is happening, people are taking tremendous advantage of time in. Like usually when the person telling you to take a time out is aware that you're actually taking the time out, they're putting in a lot of time. And they're advancing their position. They're advancing their progress. They're moving forward with the mission of their life. Now, hopefully their agenda is positive, but it isn't always. So I don't participate in time out. I get a good 8 hours of sleep every night, but it's not time out. It's rest and recuperation.
That's right.
It's not time out. It's all time in. So I don't like the idea of we're going to go dormant. We're going to hibernate for another season. I don't hibernate. I'm not a bear. I'm not going to spend the next 4 months of my life watching the entirety of Netflix again. I'm just not doing it. There's a lot of martial arts that I could be, would be, should be doing, and I will be. Not only my physical practice, but the applications of the principles, particularly the strategic principles, the philosophical underpinnings to help navigate my way through this physically and psychologically and spiritually. I have an obligation to myself and my family and my sphere of influence to do that. The idea that I'm going to go into some self-induced coma while the big kids figure this out is, I find it offensive. I find it inappropriate. It's alienating. And I don't want to make anyone feel alienated. And I myself don't want to be made to feel alienated. No. You over there, you hibernate. And we'll get to the bottom of this. Freeze. It's not in line with the reality of our existence. So how do we apply the strategies, the tactics, the principles, the philosophies of what we learned in the classroom to what it is that we're dealing with right now? One of the primary ways is that far be it from me to sit on my hands and wait for a vaccine so that I can bypass the importance of mitigating and minimizing the comorbidities that possibly exist. Meaning, I'm not gonna indulge in a lousy diet and a substandard exercise program and let my physical health deteriorate in the hopes that a vaccine will come along and buy me some time.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I have family members, unfortunately, that are experiencing what they call comorbidity issues.
Yes.
And I've oftentimes thought that the martial arts would help them to overcome the issues intellectually, emotionally, if you will, that are causing them not to deal with their comorbidity issues effectively.
Mm,
I think it's just such an interesting point
yes.
from this perspective. Like, I'm not proud of this story, but somewhere around June, I had went to Fairway Market, and there was plenty of social distancing going on. And, I had my mask down kind of right below my nose. It just kind of slipped down. I wasn't, frankly, I feel like I'm physically fit. I keep myself well. So while COVID does seem to be a threat, it's not, I don't feel, for me, that it's going to be the end of my existence. Now, I'm just speaking for myself and setting up this,
Mhm.
this point that I pre-framed I'm not proud about, but I'll admit it. And so there was, I was at the line, I was at the front of the line to get to the cashier, right? And the cashier was at least 50 feet away from me. And a very, very overweight man who was at the counter looks and screams over to me, "Hey, wear your mask like you mean it." And it was very, very difficult for me. It was really hard for me not to kind of succumb to the fantasies of marching over there and expressing something like I meant it. and I thought to myself, it's really, really interesting that, I think that if this person would have been training in the martial arts seriously, I mean, he may be training in the martial arts, but his body definitely didn't reflect that.
Mhm.
The kind of, training that you and I, one, came up in and advocate for our own selves and our students, right? So, I think that, like, and this is why I said I think that, like, training in the martial arts and in engaging with principle in such a way that we're practicing it would help alleviate some of the anxiety and tension around all of this stuff, and I love this point that you make, that, like, you're not going to take a time out on dealing with your life
Yeah.
and dealing with the things that are as pressing as COVID, which is, type 2 diabetes, for instance,
Yeah.
or heart disease or cancer, any number of things that I'm not wishing upon anyone, but they're there. They're there. They're threatening. What's your response?
So I dare say the premise of this to me is that I
Oh, wait. I gotta say one more thing so everyone knows, because the title of the podcast is The Gentle Art. So what I did in response was I pulled my mask over my nose and saluted the guy. I didn't have anything aggressive. That's part of the martial arts too.
Sure.
Really, that like that was my black belt response in that moment, as best as I could muster, was, you know what, I respect you,
Sure.
even though it's very clear that there's other things going on for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And look,
know?
my belt wasn't tied properly. Thank you for reminding me. And
Yep.
now I'm going to tie my belt properly. I'm
I'm gonna get back
gonna
to work.
put the mask over my nose. I'm not good idea resistant. If the mask is a good idea, resistant, it's like a mouthpiece. You don't always need a mouthpiece, but it's sometimes a good measure. I'm not a big mouthpiece guy,
I've
but
never been a big mouthpiece guy.
I have dental bills to prove it. So So there's a paradox to it, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm not a big cup guy. Like
I'm not a big groin cup guy either.
I'm a big growing cup guy.
I'm a small groin cup
Yes.
guy.
And I've paid the price, you know, I paid the price for not being a cup guy. And now the argument here, not really the argument, the position is that a dental bill and a, you know, a kick in the groin is not the same as ending up on a ventilator and being dead. So I think the consciousness for people is around this incredibly deadly potential, which has some reality to it. But again, I would begin with the premise of,
Says the guy who's working on the ambulance corps, by the way, right? You're volunteering on the ambulance corps in your area. You
yes,
see it, you know it.
yes,
It isn't coming cavalier.
right. I don't, it's just a tough topic, and in line with the martial arts, like what a beautiful, horrible example of divide and conquer. You know, what a divisive situation this is amplified. I didn't say that this is created, because the divisive reality is always there. Let me get back though, and starting with the idea that I preside over the reality of both the misery and the ecstasy of my own existence. I preside directly over both the misery and the ecstasy of my own existence that I call my life. Yeah, I don't delegate that to anybody else. I just don't do it. I am responsible for the decisions that I make that will determine my destiny. I have to take responsibility for that. And I think if you don't, you're already in trouble. Like if you're listening to this and you're saying, yeah, but I'm not in charge, but I'm not responsible, but that's somebody else's job. They take care of me. I thought that they were supposed to make sure that this, if that's your thinking, I would just go back and listen to this again and just consider the idea that you preside over the reality of both the misery and the ecstasy of your own existence, which you call your life. You preside over it. You, in fact, preside over it. If you falsely delegate that responsibility to others, you will find it to be extraordinarily detrimental. And again, like painful, maybe difficult to hear, not meant to alienate anyone. I would just consider listening to that a few times. And if it helps, those are not my words. They're not my words, but I apply those words to my life. I didn't come up with those, but I would reconsider those words. And that when you begin there, then you have to look at, what are you doing with your life? And if you tell me, Tom, you have to hibernate and you got to freeze and time out and just chill for a while, and I'll actually provide you with some ammunition, some funding to finance your hibernation. No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you, but no, thank you. I don't have time to hibernate. I don't have time to hibernate.
This is like someplace where I don't know if you and I diverge, but and I think I agree with you. Like right there, like we have to take accountability. Ultimately, we do, for all of what's going on in our experience.
Particularly our own.
Yes, in our experience, right? And I think that, like, I've said this, like, I want social reform, but I'm not a socialist. And I think that, like, alongside of that is a parallel principle that we are our brother's keeper. It's one of the reasons I teach martial arts. It's because, like, I have a direct interest in seeing my fellow man, my brother and sister do well. It's very, very important.
It's
So
imperative.
what?
It's imperative.
It is imperative. And there's a distinction, right? Because we come from a paradigm that you cannot take false responsibility for someone else's progress, right? You can't learn somebody karate. It's one of the, my favorite quotes of yours. Like, I can't learn you karate. Everyone has to learn it. But we do have to be the golden rule. You have to treat others the way you want to be treated. So I think that there are some parallel principles here that don't conflict, but are, if you side on one or the other, it doesn't tell the whole story.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that the dojo is a place where we can tell the whole story. We can have an environment, and I'll let you get back to it, because I do want to hear what you recommend for the instructor, the sensei. But the dojo floor is the exact place where people are learning that they have to take accountability for not just themselves, but for the person in front and back and on either side of them in the classroom. Like that's the senpai kohai relationship. That's at the fundamental, like the core of it. And so these points need to converge, I think.
Okay, so they do, and I'll offer this, because I could not be in deeper agreement for what that's worth. So the dojo, its very function is to create an artificial environment that is safe, not void of danger. The fact that there's danger in the dojo is part of what drives the safety. If we are led to believe there's a vaccine that we can take that will allow us to be fundamentally irresponsible in our training in the dojo, not only would a lot of people take that vaccine, but training in the dojo would become extraordinarily irresponsible. Just how it goes. Like, it's how it goes. There's a vaccine for lung cancer. And if you take that vaccine, you still get to enjoy the whatever it is that people,
the delicious taste of tobacco.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. But if there were a vaccine that eliminated the deadly potential and the deadly destiny of that behavior, I don't think that it would reduce participation in that behavior.
It's
I don't think it would.
I know someone, a close friend, who said, even though there will be a vaccine, I'll still wear my mask. It was like, it was just an interesting comment.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure what to make of it. I hear there's a lot of fear there, but.
Yeah, I hear there's fear there. I also hear that there's also this possibility. It might be a wise position, because the idea that the mask protects us from this particular pathogen and only this particular pathogen is erroneous. The mask does other things. It filters out other things that you perhaps do not want to breathe directly into your body. Perhaps. I don't know what your friend's observation or statement meant to him, but again, like, I don't want to make the mask a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. There's a lot of good ideas. The cup's a good idea. The mouthpiece is a good idea. Headgear is a good idea. Wrapping your hands is a good idea. Seatbelts are a good idea. There's a lot of good ideas. And if you're going to become a rebel without a cause and be oppositional for the sake of opposition, you got to be careful. Because that is really not a correct martial arts principle,
So,
to just go against the force for the
mhm,
sake of going against it.
mhm,
It's very interesting. Like if you take 50 people and you say, who likes tigers and who likes dragons? 50 people, children or adults, and they're all in the room, and you say, who wants to be a tiger and who wants to be a dragon? What you'll find is that a good number of the people will look toward a small handful of the people.
mhm.
And whatever it is that they've decided, they jump on board with it. And
Not
interestingly
me.
enough, I get it. I know.
I'm tiger. I'm all tiger.
Interestingly enough, though, it's usually about 50-50
Mhm,
because we're bipolar.
mhm.
Polarities are a tremendous part of our thought process. We're into this thing of polarities. If I say up, three guys say up, and another three guys say down. It's how it goes.
It's really interesting. I think we've talked about this a bit, but one of my favorite Jim Rohn quotes is that good is always under attack.
True,
It's like, and he's like, I don't know why, but it just seems that way. That good is
true,
always under attack. So,
true.
um,
Half,
I love, and I've used this quote of yours many, many times. Like, don't be good idea resistant. Like you told me that, like I don't know, 10 years ago. Like, Gene, you know what you are? You're good idea resistant. And I was like, you were right at the time, and I was struggling, but that's
because
good.
because we do enjoy testing the validity of a proposed idea. We do enjoy troubleshooting it. We enjoy seeing whether or not it holds up. Is it seaworthy? That's a big part of us. Like Jim Rohn's right. Good is often under attack about half the time.
Mm.
And about half the time, bad is secretly supported. Bad is secretly and deviantly supported about half the time. About half the time. It's amazing how things will split in these polarities. You see it throughout just about every aspect of life.
Yeah.
So
Well, I was just going to say, like, part of our pre podcast discussion was, people, what I felt people's martial artists, black belts, their responsibility, or what we had to take accountability for right now as practitioners, is advocating harmony, is kind of being an advocate for middle ground ish thinking and behaving, because otherwise it's going to be chaos.
sure. And you
And
also brought up the idea of we need to have some accountability and responsibility toward one another, not false responsibility,
mhm,
but toward one another. And what I'm proposing and you're proposing, I believe, is that you can't do that while you're hibernating. You can't do that after, a good season of stealing picnic baskets with Boo Boo and go hibernate in a cave. Like that's just not how it's done. It's not how it's done. Not how it's done. So you mentioned the ambulance corps, and let me assure you that among the selfish things that I've done in my life, volunteering to into EMS has been by far at least in the top 3 of the most selfish.
mhm, mhm.
And you're going to find that if you're feeling helpless, the solution's to be helpful.
Mhm.
And certainly that benefits others, but it primarily benefits you. And furthermore, my foray into EMS is not a departure from the martial arts, contrary to the popular opinion of many of my friends and colleagues, is that like I took my foot off the gas in the martial arts and I put it into this other thing. And through the lens of Chinese medicine, martial arts is physical therapy.
Mhm.
It's physical therapy. It's the physical therapy of Chinese medicine. You have many modalities. You have acupuncture, you have herbology, which is pharmacological medicine. You have Twaina and bone setting, which are massage methods, and osteopathy, if you will. You have a variety of modalities, but the physical therapy is the kung fu. The physical training provides you with an opportunity to restore your body, to strengthen it and build it, optimize your health. Yeah, through the practice of the martial arts. Again, your immune system is an important part of defending your health from external danger. Martial arts also provides you with an opportunity to protect your body from external danger in the form of punches and kicks, but it goes far deeper than punches and kicks. So muggers and things of that sort. So getting involved in emergency medical services is staying involved in the martial arts. I mean, there's nothing that I've learned in the martial arts that I'm not able to apply directly to my experience on the ambulance in providing emergency care for people who desperately need it and getting them to the hospital in one piece intact, and trying to minimize harm. Blah, blah, blah. Most selfish thing I've ever done. And if I were hibernating, I'd be wrestling with things like depression and anxiety and hopelessness and helplessness, because I wouldn't be providing help to others. As you've said, that a big part of what it is that we do is in service to others. A tremendous part of what we do is in service to others. So I've just been able to take my martial arts experience and apply it to emergency medical services underneath their guidelines and their, dictates, mandates, et cetera. But I'm here to tell you, it's all the same thing.
Well, let's get back real quick to, in the time we have left, so I think we explored the topic of not shutting down your martial arts. And if you're a kind of, in quotations, responsible, head instructor, sensei, school owner, and you're mandated by the state to shut down again, or you haven't opened, which some of my schools haven't, but what do you see to that person? What's the thought model there?
For the practitioner or for the instructor?
No, the instructor.
Yes, is that you have a job to do. And if someone takes away your work, you're going to fill the time that you normally allot and dedicate toward that work that you once did towards something else. Better be work. Like, I really don't recommend you take a 3-month vacation, because it's not going to serve you or anyone else well. So what I would say is get to work. If you have a profession, if you're in a profession that you can shut down and walk away from, and you actually feel better about it, then stay away from it. Don't go back to it. Don't go back to it. Like, someone just did you a favor. You've made a discovery based on someone's suggestion, and you've realized that you've been giving your time, giving your life to an endeavor that has not really been providing you with any satisfactions. And I'm here to tell you, if it hasn't been providing them for you, it's not providing them for the people who are enduring the mediocrity of your class. But I don't believe that to be the case. I would imagine that if you are a martial arts school owner, operator, or a professional instructor, or any capacity thereof, I would get to work. You have to get to work. Now, I was able to get to work not only in continuing my direct practice, my own personal martial arts practice, continuing to teach, because every member of my family who lives in my house, is
Mhm.
also a practitioner. I do have the technology that we're on right now. I was able to do a little bit of virtual. And I had people who I'd spent the last 20 years with, who are as much my family as those who are formally considered to be family members through blood or marriage or any other
Mhm.
construct.
Mhm.
The members of my dojo who I've spent 20 years with, I was able to continue training with them. You'd be hard pressed to convince me that that in any way, shape, or form was a violation of mandates.
Mhm.
I was able to continue, and I'd recommend that you find a way. I'd recommend that you find a way to be productive and constructive, because the alternative is destructive.
Mhm.
The whole adage of an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Mhm.
There's a lot of truth to that. There's plenty of things that you ought to be doing. The idea that you have to stay home and hide and not be productive and not contribute to the advancement of your own life and the lives of others is absolutely perverse.
Mhm.
It's criminal.
You
It's
know,
criminal.
I I remember you asking me, maybe a month ago, like, what podcasts am I listening to?
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm not listening to many. You're like, oh, like you're not into it. I was like, no, like, I'm too busy studying the things that really interest me.
Yes.
And we were talking about my spiritual practice, and I was like, I'm just kind of inundated with it. Like, I just want to know more about it. I want to, I want people to benefit from it. I want to continue, in some ways, my martial arts practice through this vehicle, right? And I remember you were like, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Like, I don't feel like, while I am participating on, in the arena of podcasting, like, I just am not all that interested in a lot of what goes on out there in ways that are not interesting to me, just because I want to, like, I chose my martial arts well. Like, I chose a great judo teacher. I chose a great jujitsu teacher. I chose a great karate teacher. And, I stuck by them, and it served me. And so, like, I do agree that, it is, I think that criminal is a bit of a hot topic. It's a bit of like a hot button, if you will.
Yes.
I do believe that the suggestion that we remain dormant in a capacity that shuts down our mental acuity and or our ability to progress in any sort of way is atrocious, is the word I would use. It's an atrocity. It's
Yeah.
not, yeah, and so,
Yeah, it's offensive. Like I'm going to use the word offensive. The idea that I've somehow transcended the uh, the ability to be offended. I don't want to present that, because it would be false. I find it offensive. Like it ruffles my feathers. It does. It bothers me to no end. And like, so let's explore this a little further. You could always stay home and post. You could post. I mean, you could make your contribution to society by posting. You could find some clever quotes and a picture, and you could post, and that'll occupy your time. And there's some really good documentaries, and they'll deliver all the food you want. I mean, that's essential. You could get a pepperoni pizza brought right to your door. But the idea that that somehow, look, you created an environment, and I've been to those environments I've been to a lot of hospitals. I've been to a lot of hospitals, and I've been to your dojo. I'd rather have surgery done in your dojo than any of the hospitals besides HSS. You got a little bit of competition there. HSS and your dojos, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And that's a compliment to HSS, not an insult to you. You've created an environment that's extraordinarily safe. It's not without danger, but neither is your apartment, neither is my house, and neither is the governor's mansion or the White House or Columbia. Like, there's not an environment that's void of the cemetery. Cemetery's safe when nobody else is there. Cemetery's safe. But the idea that after all the work you've done to create an environment, like your school is a whole heck of a lot safer and cleaner and more I don't want to say germ free because that's ignorant. That's ignorant. And if you want to go somewhere that's really not germ free, take a ride in the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get even worse, keep going to where the ambulance is bringing the person to, called the hospital. And then you're really going to find a place that is far from germ free.
Tom,
we move forward and we live our lives. So
I want to come back to this thing, we were talking about multiple morbidity issues and my family members. And, there are people out there that are in martial arts with compromised immune systems.
Of course there
And, I struggle with some, health issues sometimes, right? It's not that
I can tell. You know how I can tell? Because you're alive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to be mindful that this isn't
an attack on those people.
Well, no, I maybe that's what I'm trying to say. I think more what I'm trying to say is that this is not a dissertation from the ivory tower.
Absolutely not.
We're struggling with all this stuff too. We're fighting our own fears too. We're, working to combat with the principles of the martial arts our own health issues and our own financial issues and our own family issues and our own. I mean, this isn't this is a practice.
Absolutely.
Right? And we're all practicing.
Yeah. Yes. We're all practicing. We're all practicing. So, so there are a bunch of people who are being celebrated for their ability to practice, while they're telling everybody else you don't get to practice. Not having it. I am taking a risk every single time I take a breath. I'm taking a risk. We've been taking risks from the moment we were conceived, and we'll be taking risks until we're dead in the natural.
Again, this is getting into a hot button. And I think if you boil it down, what we're advocating here is principle-based thinking. Law mandates may insist that we behave a certain way, but it doesn't mean that we can't think differently and therefore come to new ideas, fresh ideas, new ways of doing things that push progress, that support progress.
Okay, right? So let's go with both sides of. I can stay home and I can compound my health issues. I can amplify them. I can make them worse. I can violate everything I know about nutrition. I can decide that why bother exercise? Like why bother? Self-defense is no longer important because everybody's inside. There's no muggers.
Mhm.
There's no muggers. I can make decisions like that, and I can dig myself deeper and deeper into a ditch.
Mhm.
But there's a whole bunch of
You can
things.
do that by going outside too.
That's right. That's
Right.
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 Or I could stay home. Let's go with the extreme of look. I have cardiomyopathy. I have blood sugar issues. I got high blood pressure, morbid obesity. I have COPD, and I'm at tremendous risk. Let's pretend. I hope I'm pretending that's where I'm at. So I had to stay home. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay home. But I can only watch Cobra Kai for so many hours of the day.
It's good. It's good. You watch it a few times.
Great. Listen. Like, I hope nobody's listening to this thinking that I am arrogantly and obnoxiously trying to present myself as somebody who does not indulge. Like, I like the food that I'm not supposed to eat.
Mhm.
Now, there's some things that I don't ever do. I do not smoke. I've never smoked. I've drank 3 times in my life. Three times. I'm telling a lie. I just cut that in half. I drank 6 times in my life. 3 of the times I was arrested. So I stopped doing that when I was 18. I don't do that. That doesn't make me better than you if you do. But if I had all of those pre-existing conditions, now would not be a good time to make them worse.
Mhm.
If I have to stay home, I ought to tap into a lot of resources that are available through technology and get my butt in gear and exercise and
Mhm.
eat right and
Mhm.
journal and read and
Mhm.
listen. And now that's the self-indulgent part. I have to help me before I can help you.
Mhm.
But there's another side of it. And if you ignore this side of it, the first part's all for naught. What are you doing to help other people?
Mhm.
That's really my question. My question is like, while you're trying to, I've had many people present themselves as extraordinarily self-righteous, vilify those who have stepped outside into the elements and worn their mask beneath their nose and made those people look to be monsters.
Mhm.
But my question to them would be, what are you doing
Man,
to help other people? What are
I
you
tell you,
doing?
I don't know what that person, I don't know what that person does from Fairway to help other people, but I wrestled with that.
Well,
I thought to myself, this guy's gonna go home and tell a hoo-ah story about
absolutely.
how he screamed. And I didn't vote Republican. Like, I don't care what you voted, and I don't care what anybody else voted, but I
I
didn't
didn't
vote.
vote. I didn't vote.
Let me finish. So
Yep.
I didn't vote Republican, but I know that this guy, he went home, or I know. I fantasized that this guy went home and told everyone he knew that he stood up to the big bully.
Yeah,
And
rage against the machine.
yeah, yeah. And I thought to myself, but this guy doesn't even know anything about me. He
Sure,
doesn't know
sure,
what I'm doing in the world
sure.
to help people or not help people.
But let's not miss this. And I don't think you're missing this. This jolly good fellow is well, and I mean this with all due respect. Like, here's a guy who's gainfully employed, right? Was he working there?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was shopping
Oh, I'm
there,
sorry. He was shopping there. Okay,
but
I'm sorry.
his basket was full.
God,
You know what I mean?
not a good listener. I thought that he was
I didn't tell the story well. Yeah, I'm sure.
You did. You did. I thought he was gainfully employed. Like,
No, he was checking out as
okay.
well.
Okay. So, and I think your observations are astute. I think that he feels like that was his contribution
His civic
to the
duty.
betterment of humanity.
Yeah.
Tell
And you know, that's why I pulled my mask up in a way. And was one of the reasons why I pulled my mask up and saluted him.
Okay.
I understood that. I understood, like, but I also know that, like, you know, he was like, he doesn't know the full breadth of what I do in the world. And this, I think, to the point, right? Like, this is why I'm advocating harmony. Is because, like, you were saying, and I thought it was really interesting, that, like, we love to polarize. We love to get on both ends of this thing. And that's just not the way it is. It's just, it does not work. Not that the way it is, it doesn't work well. You know, there's somewhere, it's like somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the harmony of all of this.
Well, that's the paradox, is it actually, it works quite well. It does work quite well. Like, you know, look, the guy says, like, hey man, do you realize, I don't think this is a Native American quote. I think it sounds like a Native American quote, but I don't, it's a lot of fake Native American quotes. You know that, right?
There's a lot of fake quotes, period.
Yeah, there's a lot of fake quotes.
Einstein didn't say half the things that Einstein said.
A lot of times if you attribute it to Einstein, though, people think,
yeah, people are listening. Yeah.
Makes you sound smarter. So, you know, the left wing and the right wing are both part of the same bird.
Mm-hmm.
And people take that to mean, like, in some sinister conspiratorial, you know, control of the world way. But the fact of the matter is the right wing and the left wing are both part of the same bird, and they're both necessary, or you can't fly straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's bad that there's an up and a down and a black and a white and a right and a left and a male and a female and a this and a that. And that the idea of polarity is necessary. That part of our propensity to knee jerk toward opposites is to provide balance. Like, it's not that we feel, going back to who likes tigers, who likes dragons, it usually ends up being split by about half. And I'm going to break everybody's heart here, because they look around for two alphas. And if alpha 1 picks dragon first, alpha 2 naturally, because there's some tension between alpha 1 and alpha 2, that will pick the opposite. And then the other remaining people will normally fall into line by about 50-50. We've seen it unfold a bazillion times. I mean, how many times do we have to see this happen before we recognize that it's a reality? Like, wait, are you Brady Bunch or Partridge Families? Partridge Family guy. Brady Bunch or Partridge Family?
Neither. Listen, I didn't like either of them. I like
Monsters or Addams Family?
More Monsters.
Good Times or What's Happening?
Both.
Good. So, like, right now, if you average all that out, what you'll find over time is that you end up with, like, it's about 50-50.
Listen. I'm going to search. We gotta wrap it up, but
Okay.
I'm going to search Google
for the bird.
For a tragon.
Dragon.
A tragon. A tiger. A tiger dragon.
Well, there's that too, and that's some of the misguided best
a driger.
Of harmony. But is there not harmony when there's this half is dragons and this half is tigers? There's harmony there.
There is harmony if there isn't violence. Love you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.